Exposed, she put something in her meat pie. In a small, colorful village in southeastern Nigeria, there lived a young woman named Nkem. She was known far and wide for her delicious meat pies. Every morning, Nkem would wake up early, even before the sun, to prepare her special pies. She mixed the dough carefully, adding secret spices passed down from her grandmother. Nkem, your pies are the best in the village, praised her neighbor, Mama Chika, one morning. Thank you, Mama Chika, Nkem replied with a smile. I use my grandmother's recipe, and I always try to make them with love. When the sun rose, Nkem carried her basket of hot, fresh pies to the bustling market. Children ran ahead of her, excited to taste the first pies of the day. Good morning, Nkem, shouted the market vendor, Obi, waving as she approached. Good morning, Obi, Nkem called back. I have your favorite meat pies today. People from near and far would gather around her stall, eager to buy her famous pies. Nkem always greeted everyone with a warm smile and a kind word. Her pies were not just food, they brought joy and happiness to the entire village. Every market day, the village market was filled with the lovely sounds of chatter and laughter. People from nearby villages came just to buy Nkem's delicious meat pies. Nkem's pies are the best, shouted little Ada, running ahead of her mother. Slow down, Ada, we'll get some, her mother laughed, hurrying to catch up. As Nkem set up her stall, a long line of customers formed quickly. Her friend, Chidi, was always the first in line. Good morning, Nkem. I'll take 4 meat pies today, Chidi said with a grin. Good morning, Chidi. 4 pies coming right up, Nkem replied, handing him the hot golden pies. The aroma of freshly baked pies filled the air, making everyone's mouth water. Nkem, what makes your pie so special? Asked Nneka, a curious customer. It's a secret recipe from my grandmother, Nkem said, with a twinkle in her eye, and I always add a little extra love. Everyone who tasted Nkem's pies agreed they had a unique, wonderful flavor. Nkem, these pies are amazing. You should open a shop in the big city, suggested Mr. Okoro, a merchant from a neighboring village. Thank you, Mr. Okoro, Nkem replied humbly. For now, I'm happy making my pies here in our village. The villagers felt proud of Nkem. Her success brought joy to the entire community, and market days became special occasions filled with excitement and anticipation. As Nkem's pies grew more popular, she faced a big problem. The meat she used for her pies became too expensive, and she struggled to buy enough. One evening, as Nkem prepared her ingredients, she sighed heavily. What's wrong, Nkem? Asked her friend Ifeoma, who had stopped by to chat. It's the meat, Ifeoma, Nkem replied, worried. It's getting so expensive. I'm not sure I can afford to keep making my pies. Ifeoma looked thoughtful. Can't you charge a little more for your pies? She suggested. I don't want to make them too expensive for the villagers, Nkem said, shaking her head. Everyone loves them, and I don't want to disappoint anyone. That night, Nkem lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She thought about all the people who looked forward to her pies. I can't let them down, she whispered to herself. But what can I do? The next morning, as she walked through the village, she saw children playing near the bushes. They were chasing lizards and laughing. Look at this big one, shouted a boy named Emeka, holding up a lizard proudly. Nkem watched them and suddenly had an idea. I wonder, she thought, biting her lips, could I use lizards instead of meat? Would anyone notice? She wrestled with the idea, feeling uneasy. It's not the same as real meat, she muttered, but maybe it could work, just for a little while. Nkem was faced with a difficult choice. She didn't want to deceive her customers, but she was desperate to keep her business going. As she returned home, Nkem hoped she could find another way. But the thought of using lizards stayed in the back of her mind. tempting her as a possible solution to her problem. After days of worrying and sleepless nights, Nkem felt she had no choice. She decided to use lizards instead of meat in her pies. Early one morning, Nkem whispered to herself, "I'll just try it once and see if anyone notices." She went into the bushes behind her house and carefully caught some lizards. As she prepared her ingredients, she kept thinking about her grandmother's recipe and felt a pang of guilt. "Grandmother would not approve of this," she murmured. But then she shook her head. "I need to keep my business going." When the pies were ready, they smelled as delicious as ever. Nkem brought them to the market, hoping no one would discover her secret. "Good morning, Nkem," greeted Obi, the market vendor. "I can't wait to taste your pies today." "Good morning, Obi," Nkem replied, trying to smile. "I have them right here." One by one, customers bought her pies, smiling as they bit into them. "Nkem, your pies are still the best," said Chid, licking his fingers. "What's your secret?" "Just my grandmother's special spices," Nkem answered, her heart pounding, "and a lot of love." Throughout the day, Nkem watched her customers nervously, but no one seemed to notice the difference. Everyone praised her pies as usual. "They are so good, Nkem," exclaimed Ada, the little girl. "I told my friends at school about them, and now they want some too." "Thank you, Ada," Nkem said, forcing a smile. "I'm glad you like them." As the market day ended, Nkem felt relieved but also troubled. She knew she was deceiving her friends and neighbors, but the temptation of easy success was strong. "I hope this works," she thought, packing up her stall. "I'll only do it until I can afford real meat again." But deep down, Nkem feared she had started down a dangerous path, one that might lead to even bigger problems. As Nkem continued using lizards instead of meat, her business thrived like never before. People from far and wide flocked to her stall, eager to buy her famous pies. One sunny market day, Nkem's store was surrounded by a bustling crowd. "Nkem, I'll take 6 pies today," called Mr. Okoro, the merchant from the neighboring village. "6 pies coming right up," Nkem replied cheerfully, handing him a bag filled with warm, fragrant pies. "These pies taste even better than before, Nkem," said Nneka, another regular customer. "How do you do it?" "It's all about the spices and love," Nkem said, trying to ignore the guilty knot in her stomach. With the money she earned, Nkem built a beautiful house on the edge of the village. It was painted in bright colors and had a garden full of blooming flowers. She wore fine clothes made from the best fabrics and even bought jewelry that sparkled in the sun. One afternoon, her friend Ifeoma visited her new home. "Nkem, your house is so lovely," Ifeoma exclaimed, looking around in awe. "Your business must be doing very well." "Yes, Ifeoma," Nkem replied, smiling. "I've been very fortunate." As they sat in the garden, Ifeoma asked, "What's your secret, Nkem? How do you make such delicious pies that everyone loves?" "It's a mix of my grandmother's recipe and a bit of creativity," Nkem said, avoiding Ifeoma's eyes. Despite her success, Nkem couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Every time she saw the happy faces of her customers, she felt a pang of guilt. One evening, as she counted her earnings, Nkem sighed deeply. "I've gained so much, but at what cost?" she wondered aloud. Her new life was filled with luxury, but it came with the heavy burden of her secret. Nkem knew she was walking a dangerous line, but she hoped she could keep her deception hidden for just a little longer. Despite her booming business and newfound wealth, Nkem was constantly worried someone would discover her secret. She could never fully enjoy her success, as the fear of being found out loomed over her like a dark cloud. One evening, Nkem sat in her beautiful house, unable to relax. She stared at her reflection in a mirror, her mind filled with worry. "What if someone finds out about the lizards?" she whispered to herself, her heart pounding. The next day at the market, she tried to maintain her usual cheerful demeanor, but her nervousness was evident to those who knew her well. "Are you all right, Nkem?" asked Mama Chika, noticing the tension in Nkem's smile. "You seem a bit distracted today." "I'm fine, Mama Chika," Nkem replied quickly. "Just a little tired, that's all." As the market bustled around her, Nkem watched her customers with anxious eyes. She scrutinized their expressions, fearing they might detect something unusual in her pies. One day, a young boy named Kelechi ran up to her stall. excitement gleaming in his eyes. Nkem, my mother says your pies taste differently lately, but still so good, he exclaimed. Nkem forced a smile. Different, you say? I hope that's a good thing, she replied, her heart racing. Yes, a good thing, Kelechi said, grinning widely before running off. Nkem breathed a sigh of relief, but her worry only grew. Every compliment felt like a double-edged sword, reminding her of the deception hidden in her pies. That evening, as she prepared for bed, Nkem's thoughts were filled with doubt and fear. What if someone finds out? She muttered. What will they think of me? What will they do? Her sleep was restless, filled with nightmares of angry villagers and ruined pies. Each morning, she woke up with a heavy heart, knowing she was living a lie. In the quiet moments when she was alone with her thoughts, Nkem regretted her decision. She knew that she had to find a way to make things right, but the fear of losing everything she had built held her back. As the days went by, Nkem's fear of discovery only grew, casting a shadow over her once joyful and successful life. One market day, an old woman with a walking stick and a mysterious air about her arrived in the village. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom and knowledge, and she was known as a wandering seer. As she approached Nkem's stall, the villagers watched curiously. The old woman was a stranger, but her presence commanded respect. Good day, young lady, the old woman said, her voice soft but firm. I hear your pies are famous. Good day, ma, Nkem replied, trying to hide her nervousness. Yes, people seem to enjoy them. The old woman handed Nkem a few coins. I would like to try one, please. Nkem quickly wrapped a pie and handed it to her. As the old woman took a bite, her eyes narrowed and she chewed slowly. This pie is very interesting, the old woman said thoughtfully. Tell me, what kind of meat do you use? Nkem's heart skipped a bit. She forced a smile. Just regular meat, ma. It's my grandmother's recipe. The old woman nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Nkem's. I see. Sometimes the truth can be hidden beneath many layers. Feeling uncomfortable, Nkem tried to change the subject. Would you like another pie, ma? The old woman shook her head. No, one is enough. But I must tell you, young lady, deceit has a way of revealing itself. Nkem felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? The old woman leaned closer, her gaze piercing. Secrets, no matter how well hidden, always come to light. Be careful, Nkem. The path of honesty is the safest one. With that, the old woman walked away, leaving Nkem trembling with fear. The villagers, sensing something unusual, began whispering among themselves. What did the old woman say to you? Asked Chade, stepping closer. Oh, nothing important, Nkem replied quickly. Just some advice. But deep down, Nkem knew the old woman had seen through her deceit. The fear of being discovered gnawed at her more than ever. As she closed her store that day, Nkem couldn't shake the old woman's words. She realized she was living on borrowed time, and the truth would eventually come out. Walking home, she whispered to herself, What have I done? I need to make things right before it's too late. Despite the wise old woman's warning, Nkem refused to believe her secret would ever be discovered. She convinced herself that as long as her pies tasted good, no one would question her. The next market day, Nkem set up her stall as usual. The villagers, eager for her delicious pies, quickly formed a line. Good morning, Nkem, greeted Nneka, her regular customer. I hope you have my favorite pies today. Good morning, Nneka, Nkem replied, forcing a cheerful smile. Of course, I do. Here you go. As she handed over the pies, Ifeoma approached, her expression serious. Nkem, can we talk? Nkem felt a nod form in her stomach but nodded. Sure, Ifeoma. What's on your mind? Ifeoma led her to a quieter spot. I heard what the old woman said to you last week. Are you okay? You seemed really shaken. Nkem shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. It was nothing, Ifeoma. Just an old woman's ramblings. My pies are fine and everyone loves them. Ifeoma frowned. But Nkem, she seemed to know something. Are you sure there's nothing you are hiding? Nkem's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. I'm sure, Ifeoma, there's nothing to worry about. Ifeoma sighed. All right, if you say so. Just know I'm here for you if you need to talk. As Ifeoma walked away, Nkem's unease grew. She couldn't shake the feeling that the old woman's warning was a bad omen. Later that day, Chidi came by with a concerned look. Nkem, have you heard the rumors? People are saying the lizards around the village are disappearing. Nkem's heart raced. Rumors? People say all sorts of things, Chidi. I'm sure it's just nonsense. Chidi nodded, though he looked unconvinced. I hope so. Just be careful, Nkem. We all care about you. That night, Nkem sat by her window, staring out of the darkening sky. The old woman's words echoed in her mind. Secrets, no matter how well hidden, always come to light. I can't let fear control me, she told herself firmly. I've come too far to turn back now. Determined to keep her secret, Nkem went to bed, hoping the next day would be easier. But as she drifted off to sleep, a nagging doubt lingered. She knew deep down that her deceit couldn't remain hidden forever. Despite Nkem's attempts to dismiss the old woman's warning and the rumors swirling around the village, the suspicion continued to grow among the villagers. One sunny afternoon, as Nkem was setting up her stall, Mama Chika approached with a concerned expression on her face. Nkem, have you noticed anything strange lately? Mama Chika asked, her voice low. Nkem's heart skipped a bit, but she tried to appear calm. What do you mean, Mama Chika? People have been talking, Mama Chika continued, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. They said the lizards around the village have been disappearing, and they seem to think it's connected to your pies. Nkem felt a cold shiver run down her spine. That's ridiculous, Mama Chika, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Why would anyone think that? Mama Chika sighed. I don't know, Nkem, but you should be careful, People are starting to ask questions, so. As Mama Chika walked away, Nkem's mind raced with worry. The villagers were beginning to connect the dots, and she feared her secret was on the verge of being exposed. Throughout the day, Nkem noticed the whispers and sideways glances directed at her. She felt like everyone was watching her, waiting for her to slip up and reveal the truth. When the market finally closed and Nkem returned home, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over her like a dark cloud. I can't keep living like this, she whispered to herself, tears welling up in her eyes. I have to find a way to make things right before it's too late. Determined to confront her fears and rectify her mistake, Nkem made a solemn vow to herself that she would find a solution, no matter the cost. But deep down, she knew that facing the truth would be the hardest part of all. That night, as Nkem lay in bed tossing and turning, she was visited by a vivid dream. In her dream, the spirits of the forest appeared before her, their forms shimmering with otherworldly light. Nkem spoke the spirits in unison, their voices echoing like distant thunder. We have come to warn you of the consequences of your actions. Nkem's heart pounded in her chest as she gazed at the spectral figures before her, feeling both awe and fear. You have deceived your village and disrupted the balance of nature, the spirits continued, their voices grave. If you do not confess your wrongdoing and make amends, you will face dire consequences. Trembling, Nkem tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. She knew the spirits were right, and guilt gnawed at her conscience like a hungry beast. I'm sorry, she stammered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just desperate to keep my business going. The spirits regarded her with solemn understanding. The path of deceit is a treacherous one, they intoned. But there is still time to set things right. You must confess your wrongdoing and seek forgiveness. With a final haunting whisper, the spirits vanished into the ether, leaving Nkem alone with her thoughts and a heavy burden of guilt. As she awoke the next morning, Nkem knew what she had to do. She couldn't continue living a lie, and she couldn't bear the thought of causing any more harm to her village and the creatures of the forest. I will confess, she vowed to herself, her resolve firm. No matter the consequences, I will make amends and seek forgiveness. With a newfound sense of purpose, Nkem prepared herself to face the truth, knowing that the road ahead would be difficult but necessary for her redemption. As she set up her stall in the bustling market square, her hands trembled with nerves. As the morning wore on, the usual crowd gathered around Nkem's stall, eager for her delicious pies. But today, Nkem couldn't bring herself to smile or engage with her customers as she normally would. Nkem, are you feeling alright? Asked Obi, the market vendor, noticing her somber expression. Nkem hesitated, then shook her head. No, Obi, I have something I need to tell everyone. The villagers nearby paused in their conversations, sensing the gravity of Nkem's words. With a deep breath, Nkem gathered her courage and began to speak. I have a confession to make, she said, her voice wavering but determined. I have been deceiving you all. I have been using lizards instead of meat in my pies. Gasps of shock and murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd as Nkem's words sank in. I know I have betrayed your trust, and I am deeply sorry, Nkem continued, tears welling in her eyes. I was desperate, but that is no excuse for my actions. I have caused harm to our village and to the creatures of the forest, and for that I am truly sorry. As Nkem finished her confession, a murmur of discontent rippled through the crowd. Some villagers stepped forward, their expressions stern and disapproving. This is unacceptable, exclaimed Mr. Okoro, his voice booming with outrage. How could you deceive us like this, Nkem? We trusted you. Nkem hung her head, feeling the weight of Mr. Okoro's words like a heavy burden on her shoulders. Think of the harm you have caused, added Mama Chika, her tone tinged with sadness. The lizards in our village are disappearing, and it's because of your actions. Nkem felt a pang of guilt and shame as she listened to Mama Chika's words. She knew she had caused harm, not only to her village, but also to the creatures of the forest. I am sorry, Nkem whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of discontent. I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just desperate. As the villagers continued to express their outrage and disappointment, Nkem felt her resolve waver. She had hoped for forgiveness and understanding, but instead she was met with anger and condemnation. I understand if you can't forgive me, Nkem said, her voice trembling with emotion, but please know that I am truly sorry for what I have done. I will do whatever it takes to make things right. Despite her heartfelt apology, some villagers remained unmoved. Their expressions hardened with resentment. Nkem knew that earning back their trust would be a long and difficult journey, but she was determined to do whatever it took to make amends. As the commotion in the market continued, a group of village elders stepped forward, their faces grave and serious. They were the wisest and most respected members of the community, entrusted with upholding justice and order. Nkem spoke the elder's elder, his voice commanding attention. You have caused great harm to our village with your deceit. Nkem bowed her head in shame, unable to meet the elder's gaze. She felt the weight of their disappointment like a heavy stone in her chest. We have heard your confession, continued the elder, his tone stern but not unkind. But words alone are not enough to make amends for the harm you have caused. Nkem swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. She knew that facing the elders was a crucial step in her journey to redemption. What punishment do you seek? Asked another elder, his voice echoing with authority. Nkem took a deep breath, steeling herself for the consequences of her actions. I am willing to accept any punishment you deem appropriate, she replied, her voice steady despite the fear and uncertainty swelling inside her. The elders exchanged solemn glances before nodding in agreement. Very well, said the elder's elder. You shall repay each villager you deceived and perform community service to atone for your wrongdoing. Nkem felt a sense of relief wash over her. While the punishment was daunting, she knew it was a necessary step in earning back the trust of the village. Thank you, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. I will do whatever it takes to make things right. With the elder judgment pronounced, Nkem knew that her journey to redemption had only just begun. But with their guidance and support, she felt hopeful that she could overcome the consequences of her deceit and emerge as a better person. Determined to make amends for her wrongdoing, Nkem set out to repay each villager she had deceived and to perform her community service with diligence and humility. One by one, she approached her customers, offering refunds and heartfelt apologies for her deception. Some villagers accepted her apology with forgiveness and understanding, while others remained worried and reluctant to trust her again. "I understand if you can't forgive me," Nkem said to Mama Chika, her voice filled with sincerity, "but please know that I'm truly sorry for what I have done." Mama Chika regarded her for a moment, her expression softened by compassion. "It will take time, Nkem," she said gently, "but I believe you are sincere in your desire to make things right." With each apology offered and each refund given, Nkem felt a sense of relief and hope. She knew that rebuilding trust would take time, but she was determined to prove herself worthy of forgiveness. In addition to repaying her customers, Nkem devoted herself to her community service with unwavering dedication. She helped clean the village square, tended to the gardens, and assisted the elders with their daily tasks. As the days turned into weeks, Nkem's efforts did not go unnoticed. The villagers began to see her in a new light, admiring her humility and determination to make things right. "Nkem may have made a mistake," said Chid to his friends one day, "but she's doing everything she can to make up for it." Encouraged by the support of her fellow villagers, Nkem continued her journey of redemption with renewed determination. She knew that earning back their trust would not be easy, but she was willing to work tirelessly until she had made amends for her wrongdoing. With each passing day, Nkem's reputation began to mend, and she felt a sense of pride and fulfillment, knowing that she was on the path to redemption. Though her journey was far from over, she faced the future with hope and determination, knowing that she had learned valuable lessons from her mistakes. As Nkem continued her journey of redemption, she found strength in the support and forgiveness of her village. With each passing day, she worked tirelessly to repay her debt and rebuild the trust she had lost. One sunny afternoon, as she tended to the village garden, Nkem was approached by a group of children playing nearby. "Hello, Nkem," greeted Ada, her face bright with a smile. "We miss your pies at the market." Nkem smiled warmly at the children. "Hello, Ada. I've been busy lately, but I promise I'll be back at the market soon." "Will you make more of your special pies?" asked Emeka, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Nkem's heart swelled with gratitude as she looked at the eager faces of the children. Despite her past mistakes, they still saw her as a kind-hearted woman who had brought joy to their village with her delicious pies. "Yes, Emeka," Nkem replied, her voice filled with sincerity. "I will make more pies, and this time they will be even better than before." As the children cheered and ran off to play, Nkem felt a sense of peace wash over her. Though she had made mistakes in the past, she was determined to use her experiences to become a better person. With each pie she baked and each smile she brought to the faces of her village, Nkem knew that she was making progress on her journey of redemption. Though the road ahead would not be easy, she faced it with courage and determination, knowing that she had the love and support of her community every step of the way. Do you think the villagers did the right thing by allowing Nkem to continue to prepare and sell her meat pies in the community? And if you were one of the villagers, would you continue to buy and eat Nkechi's meat pie? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section and like the video if the story teaches you a moral lesson. This is Royal African Tales and More TV. This story is the copyright of Neophonics Illumination Limited.